So as you've seen, SABC News reporter Chriselda Lewis has been on the ground the entire day. She joins us now. Chriselda, it must be very tiring emotionally, psychologically for you and all of those that you've been speaking to. Please take us through the day and the latest at the moment.
Well, Tepiso, good evening to you indeed, and precisely because, like you indicated, this is not the first time that we're here. Several years ago, students were on the streets of Johannesburg and other parts of the country protesting for inclusion into South Africa's universities. So the scenes that were playing out today is not the first time that we've seen these visuals in South Africa, where students are saying at the moment they're sick and tired. A promise was made by government. How far that promise has gone has not been met as far as they're concerned. They're now saying if no one within the higher echelons of the higher education ministry does not address them, they're going to continue with their protests until someone listens. The scenes that we saw, students protesting, and unfortunately one of the civilians, the students themselves are civilians, but one of the individuals, a man who was coming out of a clinic, was basically caught in what was taking place a bit earlier on. I don't want to say in the crossfire because students did not fire at the police, so it would be wrong for me to use the word crossfire. The visuals that you earlier showed on the program, which we've been showing on SABC News, certainly indicate there needs to be some sort of investigation that needs to be held into the CCTV footage which we've had on this program, which shows the man sitting near the tire of a car, and subsequently the gun goes off, and that's where you're able to see that he was shot on the chest. He then wakes up and walks a few meters away, and that's when he then collapsed and basically had passed on at that particular spot. We've heard from emergency services that they tried to resuscitate him. That was unsuccessful, and unfortunately that is the price that is being paid at this particular point. The Independent Police Investigative Directorate, who I understand you will be speaking to, will tell you that they did send some investigators here to come and ascertain exactly what had taken place. But essentially, in the midst of all the chaos, in the midst of all the shooting, in the midst of all these scuffles, we want to get back to exactly where all of this started. Students are saying that they've been excluded from universities because they owe monies. I want to bring in now Ndileka Cola, who's one of those excluded students. This message somewhat does not filter through in the midst of all the chaos and the shooting and the scuffle that was taking place. Ndileka, talk us through what it is like for you as a student who was excluded. Tell us your personal story.
Chriselda, today Zeblon Vilagazi showed us an iron fist. I am an academically deserving student, and I can prove that because I am part of the Golden Key Association, which says that I'm part of the top 15% of my entire degree. And yet the same university is saying to me that I must put my qualifications on hold, I must put my future on hold, I must put the dreams of the community that I come from on hold, and I must also put the dreams of my own parents, my family, on hold, because they are saying that I'm not deserving to be in the space. And we know, Chriselda, that this is premised on the fact that I carry this skin, because this skin does not afford me the privileges that it affords other people, our counterparts, if I can put it that way. So my personal story is that the university is currently saying to me that I cannot register. They don't care where I sleep, what I eat. They also don't care that the academic program has started, right? So which means that besides being financially excluded, it goes into a deeper thing. Now I'm behind on school. Now there are certain things that I just cannot perform. And I feel like the university is trapping me into a space where I won't be able to catch up with those who are privileged enough currently to be sitting in classes or to be going to these online classes and etc. So they're disadvantaging me in all types of ways, in various types of ways.
this is because, according to them, you owe the university monies.
Yes.
Break that down for us.
So I'm currently owing, I can't actually remember how much I'm owing, but it's something that has happened over the years. Unfortunately for me, I'm currently doing my PDM with Wits Business School, and that program is not covered by NSFAS, nor is it covered by it's not covered by NSFAS. Let's just leave it at that. What I wanted to raise rather is that my undergraduate was covered for 2 years, and I had historical debt on top of that. And the same university was saying to me that I'm not going to graduate on the basis that I have this debt. So it's just that cycle. There's a cycle, and I feel like I'm trapped in it. But at the same time, Chriselda, I know that this is not about me, right? This is about a student who's owing 300,000 and is being told by the same university that they're supposed to pay 50% of 300,000. You're talking about a student who's coming from a rural area, who's coming from a village, and you're asking them to pay 150,000 so that they are able to register. At the same time, they're not allowing us to sign AODs. We are asking them simple things. Uguti, comrades, allow us to say students who owe 120,000 can register, which is something that has happened in the past. It is a concession that has been met in the past. But Zeblon is showing us, Uguti, he does not care about. He knows the repercussions of COVID-19, for example. He knows, but he has selective amnesia because he knows its effects when it comes to the university, but is unable to see that when it comes to how students were affected by COVID-19. A lot of unemployment, retrenchments, or etc. Students lost parents. Students lost their breadwinners. And currently the university is turning a blind eye to that.
So, as one of those students who feels excluded, I'm sure you have also had conversations with others as well. What is the way forward for you as students? Clearly, the academic year has started. You're going to lose out. Students are now on the streets saying that they're not going to turn back until someone listens to them.
Comrade Chriselda, even myself as I stand here, I'm unable to breathe because I'm inhaling tear gas that was thrown directly at me. Those students that you are speaking about are the ones that have been shot. Those students that you are speaking about are the ones currently that have been arrested. You understand what I'm saying? So, at this point, we can't back down. Someone has lost their lives for this cause. And it is something that has broken us here on the ground. But at the same time, it is impossible for us to retreat at this point because his life can't go in vain. It can't go in vain. And we're saying to the university, to the government, to the police that this can't be it. This can't be how they're going to treat students on the basis that they're disadvantaged. Because that is the only crime that we've committed so far. The fact that we don't have money, and they know the historical context of why those reasons are there. It's not that we chose not to have money. It's not that we chose to be in the positions that we are in. But these comrades are refusing to listen to us. We have requested meetings. We have asked them, please come down from your towers and just speak to us. Engage us. Look at the students that have been shot. You need to see what it is your lack of communication is causing. But they're refusing to do that. So as students, we are not going to back down. We can't back down. The man that died today, we owe him our lives, we owe him our energy, we owe him our dedication to this cause, and we are not going to back down until they come down from their ivory towers and speak to us and tell us what it is exactly they were trying to achieve with this. Because at the same time, what do you think is going to happen when you shoot at someone in their chest, when you shoot at someone? Regardless, when you shoot at someone, what do you think is going to happen to that person? You are deliberately trying to hurt that person. So we just want them to come down from those ivory towers to tell us what it is exactly they would like to see happen now, because on our side we are very decisive, we are very clear, we're not going to stop.
Lesego, thank you very much indeed. Lesego Lowe, an excluded student who was unable to register at the institution because she owes the university money. I'm going to bring in now the Deputy President of the SRC at Wits University, Stembiso Tabula. Stembiso, thanks indeed for your time. We saw the scenes play out on the Johannesburg streets from this morning. Someone has died, caught on the sidelines of your struggle. Where to from now? And in particular, in the manner in which you've criticized very much the manner in which police have handled the situation, have handled your legitimate cause.
Sure. We are not going to back down. we are not going to back down. And in us saying this, we are going to defend students with our bodies. The SRC is the first line of defense of students. So we are going to defend students who are financially excluded with our bodies. And one thing I think I need to express here is that we are very disappointed that a black vice-chancellor who's from Katlehong, who knows the terrible deprivations that students are exposed to, is going to do this to students, because he had ample amount of opportunity to give us what we want. We had 8 meetings already. 8. The only thing they could give us is an extension of registration. Where are students going to get money if they extend registration? It's not going to yield anything. It's not going to yield anything. We are protesting from Thursday. We shut down Hall 29 time and time again, and we're tired. The reason why we came out is because we felt that if he's not exposed, if the media can't see what's really happening, then he's going to relax as he's been relaxing. He's mute, literally mute. Nothing from him, no form of remorse, nothing. They started shooting yesterday. There was a student today who has been shot twice. She's owing 142,000. Yet they are saying that they can only allow students who are owing 10,000 and below to register. How? These are academically deserving students. Year 2020 has been difficult for everyone. Students were defunded by NSFAS. Students were defunded by their bursaries, mainly because businesses couldn't pay, mainly because they lost business themselves. Do you understand? At this point, we don't understand why the police are doing what they're doing. We don't understand why Zebulon is mute and silent and not acting on anything. They are going to claim that they've been coming down and wanting to speak to us and they want to negotiate. We are not prepared to negotiate. They know all our demands. We had 8 meetings. If they are not going to give us the demands we were demanding, then there's no point. We are going to continue to be on the ground. And if it means the police are going to shoot at us, we are all going to die then. But dying for the right cause, to say that we were fighting financial exclusion.
This is not the first time we were on the streets some years ago with students who have now obviously left the academic space for the very same cause, exclusion. Do you think government has failed to address this situation? This is not the first time we're on the streets. This is not the first time that students are crying out. Do you think that the Minister of Higher Education and Training has failed to play an adequate part in solving this crisis? It is a crisis. Someone has died.
They failed us long time ago. Even when they protested in 2015 and 2016, the solution they gave is to change NSFAS from being a loan to being a bursary. That was not a step towards the realization of free education. Because 1, you need to qualify for NSFAS. 2, it can't cover your postgrad if you're going to want to further your studies. 3, they can defund you at any point. There were many students who were defunded by NSFAS. And at this point, he's now saying that he's not sure if NSFAS will be able to support first-year students. On what basis? Who's supposed to pay for their fees? And what's disappointing is that Blade is a communist. How can, as a communist who understand the struggles of the working class, allow what's currently happening? We voted for them mainly because we believed in them. But they got there and they disappointed us. It seems as if they forgot who they are and what they represent, and us as the masses on the ground. So it's really disappointing, to be quite honest. They keep failing us, but we'll never stop calling for free education, free and decolonized education.
Thank you very much for your time. The Deputy President of the SRC at Wits University, as well as a student who was giving us a sense. I think, sometimes Tsepiso, in the midst of the rubber bullets and police responding in the manner in which they did, the message itself gets lost. That student saying she does owe the university a fees, but feels that many students are being excluded on that basis, on the basis that they simply cannot afford. Those who have been afforded bursaries with some of the institutions. You'd recall, of course, at the time of COVID-19, some of those companies who have lost business as well are unable to fund those students or to give them bursaries as a result of the trying times in which we are in. So we don't expect, Tepiso, the situation to tad down any further. We expect over the next few days the very same scenes that we saw on the streets of Johannesburg this morning into this afternoon to continue, as students are adamant they'll continue with their protest action until there is some kind of way forward, and that way forward is going to have to come from those who are at the higher seats of government.
Chriselda, thank you very much. And of course, we'll continue getting more updates from my colleague there, Chriselda Lewis. A cause they are willing to die for, that is what those student leaders and students who are fighting for affordable education are saying. And of course, the sad thing is that somebody has died and investigations are now underway to determine as a result of being shot by whom. It's not yet clear whether it was police, according to IPID, the Independent Police Investigative Directorate. We joined now by its spokesperson, Ndileka Cola, to talk about the investigation into the shooting. A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us, Ms. Cola. First of all, you had said earlier in speaking to the press that you're not sure that if this would be a normal investigation, whether you'd be allowed to investigate. Are the lines clear now?
Good evening, Tabiso, and good evening to your viewers. Indeed, I can confirm at this point in time that IPID is investigating death as a result of police action. As you'd know that earlier, IPID dispatched a team of investigators that went into the scene to sort of probe the allegations. And at that point in time, indeed, we were not certain if there was really some sort of prima facie evidence that was sort of empowering us as IPID to continue with the investigation. But as it is now, IPID is investigating this particular matter, and the investigation process is indeed underway.
Okay, and you say it's because the death is as a result of alleged police action. Now, do we know if it was live ammunition or rubber bullets that were used?
That is what exactly IPID is investigating. The investigation process is going to reveal such details.
But Ms. Cola, what do the ballistics report say? Isn't there an inventory of what ballistics the officers that are sent out are given?
Yes, remember, Tapiso, this incident occurred only today, and tomorrow morning, IPID is going to form part of the team that will be conducting post-mortem. That is also assist in determining the actual cause of death, especially when it's unnatural causes of death that someone has died as a result. Secondly, we're talking about ballistic report. Of course, the evidence from the firearms is also going to be examined by experts that are forensic specialists that are also going to determine and also give us some more evidential information that is going to assist us in determining exactly what happened in the crime scene. Over and above that, when we get those, we call them technical reports. So those technical reports are not at this point in time ready. They sort of take time. They don't become automatically available, and they go start tomorrow.
We'll talk about the timeline of the reports, but as you say, you don't know what happened, but from the visuals that we saw there, that we've been playing, it is evident that there was somebody who was shot at a close range. Have you seen those visuals yourself?
Definitely, Tapiso, I have seen the visuals.
So what would you say?
And what I can say is that as our investigators were in the scene today, we managed to collate numerous witness statements. We managed to gather voluminous evidence, and that evidence is going to assist us as we dig deep and get into the finer details of what transpired today earlier in Braamfontein.
Let's get into some finer details and just the extent of planning for this. Was there a risk assessment done? We knew yesterday already that students intended to continue protesting. Was there a risk assessment done, and was there a report done ahead of the deployment today?
So remember, when we investigate exactly that. We investigate so that we get to understand what happened. We investigate so that and we conduct interviews with various role players that could have been in the crime scene. So when we conduct our interviews, we interview SAPS officials, we interview we interview the victim or their family, we interview the people that have seen what transpired. So the part of the planning process of the South African police services that could have been in place as they were conducting their operation is the information that is going to be acquired by the directorate is also going to form part of the evidential information that the directorate is going to use ultimately to ensure justice for this particular family.
But Ms. Cola, being familiar with police process and procedure, what normally happens? Do these reports only get published after the fact? Is there no prior planning that is done where a report is published? For instance, the use of force. Would there not have to be prior authorization for an officer in that unit to use force?
For this particular incident, we cannot preempt that there was what should have happened. We know what should have happened. But at this point in time, what is important for us is to establish what happened.
Okay.
What is it that police have transgressed? What is it that they were ought to do that they might have not done? What is it that they have done correctly? What is it that they have done amiss? And then after that, then we're able to compile a comprehensive report for prosecutorial reasons.
Under normal circumstances, this is what I'm asking you to do. Help us educate us as the people who ask these questions, as our viewers, the public at large. What is normal process and procedure? Would a risk assessment be done and published before the deployment? And would anybody outside of the unit that's going to be deployed be privy to that risk assessment, including authorization of use of force? Is that something that would be in writing so that if an officer said, yes, I discharged my weapon, whether the ammunition was rubber bullets or live ammunition, that I had authorization?
When SABC is conducting their operations, they do have plans in place. They put their plans in place. They deploy police officers. They know which police officers, for example, they were in that particular vicinity or that were attending specifically to what to the Wits protest. So that sort of information is available, and that sort of information, as I am saying, it is part of the information that is going to be assisting us in our investigation process.
So then, typically, when you're doing a risk assessment, we understand that the number of officers that were deployed at the time was not a large unit, possibly suggesting that the situation would not have been deemed that serious, in the sense that that would inspire the use of force. Is it possible to ascertain at this point whether somebody being shot at close range meant that the situation turned very quickly?
So we cannot get into those finer details. We need that information for the investigation process. That information is what is going to assist IPID to ensure justice. So if that sort of information would be discussed in public, it's going to compromise our case at the end of the day. But what is important, and what I can say, is that at all possible times, the police officers should use proportional force whenever they are trying to calm any sort of situation like this one.
Let me ask you then one important question. You don't want to discuss current situations. Let's look at past situations. Since 2015, how many police officers have been involved, charged with use of force that is disproportionate, that has led to grievous bodily harm, somebody being killed as a result, or how many have been charged with this that IPID has worked with on these cases?
Well, we wouldn't have that sort of information at hand right now. But I could say that it's information that is available within the public space, including in our various platforms that we use as IPID to sort of disseminate information. But just want to indicate that most of the cases that IPID is investigating is assault cases, and they would occur in instances of this nature where police were trying to sort of calm the storm whenever there's a protest. And so that category of cases is sort of leading in terms of numbers of cases that we are investigating as IPID.
And with due respect, let me tell you why I asked this question. There's a narrative that seems to be playing out. A lot of students who have been at these protests often say that they have heard gunshots. They've seen the use of live ammunition. And we've seen, of course, reports of protesters being shot. In some cases, we've seen in the past with live ammunition, in some cases with rubber bullets. But there seems to be a narrative that is appearing that protesting students need to be afraid of police officers because they are the ones who are being victimized. What is your assessment of IPID? Has there been evidence of these allegations?
Well, not specifically for students that are protesting, but safe to say it's a piece so that whenever there's protests in the country, be it for any sort of service delivery, unhappiness or unrest, IPID has, when we are investigating, we are in many instances realizing that police do use excessive force than the required or the expected proportional force when they are trying to calm the storm, or when they are trying to ensure that in the communities when the people, sometimes you understand that sometimes people that are protesting, they would pose risk to ordinary citizens that are not part of the protest. They would be throwing stones, they would ban the streets, they would be destroying property. So, but there are SAPS standing orders that SAPS is using when they are attending to scenes of this nature. Safe to say that when they're dispersing the crowd, they are permissible. It is permissible that they use rubber bullets.
Okay, thank you so much for speaking to us. Ndileka Cola is IPID spokesperson. IPID are now investigating the death of that man who was shot during protest action by students. Wits University has since issued a statement following the shooting.
The university is deeply saddened to learn of the passing of a 35-year-old man in the Braamfontein CBD outside of Wits University today. The university extends its condolences to the family of the deceased. The university condemns any form of violence and calls on all persons to keep calm during this very difficult time. Based on media reports, the university's current understanding of the situation is as follows. Protest action occurred in the Braamfontein CBD earlier today. The SAPS were managing the situation. Initial reports suggest that a civilian was caught in clashes between the protesters and SAPS and regrettably lost his life. At this stage, the university does not have confirmation of the cause of his death. 2 student reporters were injured and 3 protesters were arrested and taken to the Hillbrow police station. All queries directly related to this incident should be directed to the SA Police Services, as they were on the scene and were managing the matter as a public order incident. The university continues to seek further information on this matter. Wits has made available health and counselling services to students and members of the community who need assistance. The university notes with deep concern the escalation of the situation, which is regrettable, and the university calls on all persons to remain calm during this difficult time. The university remains committed to seeking creative, peaceful solutions to any outstanding issues in the higher education sector.